Listen carefully, because something is happening in America that no one expected. A silent pressure, building inside millions of homes. A cost of living so high that even the middle class, the group that once carried this nation, is now struggling to breathe. According to many reports, families who were safe just a few years ago are now one bill away from crisis. And the most shocking part? This wasn't caused by one disaster, but by thousands of small changes no one noticed until it was too late. Today, we pull back the curtain on the truth everyone feels, but few dare to say out loud. There is a strange feeling spreading across the country. You hear it in grocery stores. You hear it at gas stations. You hear it in the quiet sighs of parents standing at the checkout line, pretending everything is fine. But it isn't fine. Not anymore. The price of almost everything has changed. Food, rent, electricity, childcare, insurance, transportation. Even simple things like a haircut or a cup of coffee carry a new weight. And for millions of American families, that pressure is becoming unbearable. According to several studies, the average family in the United States now spends more than ever on basic needs, not luxuries, not vacations, not upgrades, but essentials that used to be manageable. Some economists say the middle class is shrinking faster than expected. Others warn that the ground beneath it is already breaking. But the question is simple. How did this happen? How did the world's most powerful middle class reach a point where millions feel like they're falling behind, even when they're working harder than ever? To understand that, we need to step back and look at the bigger picture, a story that stretches across decades, markets, policies, global shocks, and silent shifts that shaped the modern American life. Because this crisis didn't come out of nowhere. It grew slowly, just like rising water filling a house, inch by inch, while the people inside keep telling themselves, it's fine. It'll go down soon. But water doesn't go down on its own. And neither do prices. This is the new reality many Americans face. A reality where numbers on a screen rise faster than the paychecks trying to keep up with them. And once you see the full picture, it becomes clear. The middle class isn't just under pressure. It is being squeezed from every direction. Let's begin with something simple, something everyone feels, the rising cost of living. For years, Americans were told that inflation was temporary. That it would fade. That things would return to normal. But for many families, that normal never came back. Grocery prices reportedly jumped by some of the highest percentages seen in decades. Eggs doubled. Meat climbed. Bread, milk, fruit, everything added up faster. Housing became even more painful. Rent increased across the country, sometimes by hundreds of dollars overnight. Buying a home, once the ultimate symbol of the American dream, has become nearly impossible for millions. Mortgage rates rose, home prices climbed, and the goalposts moved so far that many families now feel permanently locked out. But it doesn't stop at shelter and food. Energy prices increased. Commutes became more expensive. Health insurance, already one of the largest financial burdens in the country, continued to rise. Even wages, though they reportedly increased on paper, didn't keep up in real life. Because when everything gets more expensive faster than your income rises, it doesn't feel like a raise. It feels like drowning. And this is where the real story begins, not with the numbers, but with the people living inside those numbers. Picture an American family. 2 parents. Kids in school. Both adults working full-time. Not rich. Not poor. Just normal. The definition of the middle class. Now imagine that every month, a little bit more of their paycheck disappears. A little more at the pump. A little more at the store. A little more for rent. A little more for bills. Not enough to collapse everything at once. But enough to weaken them slowly. This is the silent pressure so many Americans feel today. A pressure that grows even when people don't talk about it. And yet, there is another side to this story, a deeper, hidden side, one that rarely appears in headlines. Because the real crisis isn't only the rising cost of living. The real crisis is how the middle class has been losing financial strength long before prices exploded. And this is where the story becomes even more unsettling. For years, the American middle class relied on something powerful: stability. Stable jobs. Stable incomes. Stable prices. Stable opportunities. But a series of long-term shifts began to chip away at that stability. According to many economists, wages for middle-income families have barely grown in real terms over the last few decades. Meanwhile, the cost of essentials rose, slowly at first, then faster, and now almost uncontrollably. Housing changed from something people bought to live in to something investors bought to profit from. Education, once a pathway to upward mobility, became one of the most expensive purchases in a household's life. The cost of healthcare rose so high that even insured families often fear a single unexpected medical bill. And then came global shocks, economic crashes, pandemics, supply chain breakdowns, each hitting the middle class harder than the last. These weren't isolated events. They were layers. And each layer made life just a little bit harder. But something even more dramatic happened beneath the surface. The structure of the American economy shifted. Jobs changed. Industries transformed. Automation grew. Global competition increased. Traditional middle-class careers became harder to enter, harder to keep, and harder to rely on. Many Americans found themselves working longer hours for the same paycheck, or less, while dealing with higher costs than ever before. This is the quiet erosion that set the stage for the current crisis. But the final push, the one that turned pressure into pain, came more recently. According to several surveys, millions of Americans now report having less than $1,000 in savings. Some have nothing at all. Many say they feel like they're one emergency away from financial disaster. And for the first time in decades, many families who used to feel secure are openly admitting they're struggling. This is why the cost of living crisis hit so hard. Not because of one moment, but because the middle class was already exhausted when prices exploded. And now, that exhaustion is turning into something far more serious. There is a moment in every crisis when people stop asking, "Is this temporary?" and start asking, "Is this the new normal?" Many Americans are now at that moment. It's not just about rising costs anymore. It's about the emotional weight behind those costs. The frustration of watching your paycheck disappear before the month even begins. The fear of seeing bills rise faster than you can control. The pressure of trying to hold a family together when the world around you keeps getting more expensive. These are not small things. They shape everyday life. Parents cutting back on essentials so their kids don't feel the struggle. Young adults giving up on milestones like buying a home or starting a family. Retirees going back to work because their savings no longer stretch. A lifestyle once considered middle-class comfort is slowly becoming a luxury. But the most emotional part of this story is something even deeper. The sense of losing control. And that feeling, the fear of slipping down, is now one of the most common feelings across the country. But here's the twist. This crisis is not only an American story. It's a global one. From the UK to parts of Europe, from the Middle East to South Asia, rising living costs have shaken millions of families. But what makes the American case so dramatic is how fast the pressure increased. And how deeply it hit the group that once defined the nation's strength. The middle class was not just a population group. It was the backbone of America. The engine. The stabilizer. The promise that hard work would be enough. And when the backbone weakens, everything above it begins to shake. This is where we reach the emotional high point of our story. Because the crisis facing America's middle class is not just a financial one. It is a psychological one. A cultural one. A structural one. And unless something changes, many experts fear the next decade could redefine the middle class completely. Some say it could shrink even further. Others warn it may split into two, those who barely manage to stay afloat, and those who slowly slip downward. But the truth is simple. The middle class can survive. Only if the systems that support it become stronger again. Which brings us to a powerful realization: the crisis is real, but the story isn't over. The middle class has faced hardships before. It has rebuilt in the past. It has adapted, survived, and grown. But it cannot do this alone. It needs a stable economy. Affordable housing. Real wage growth. Opportunities that match the modern world. Without those, the pressure will continue. With them, the tide can still turn. And that leads us to the final words of this story. A truth many feel, but few say aloud. The cost of living crisis did not break the middle class. It exposed how fragile it had already become. If this video opened your eyes, then make sure you stay with us. Because the world is changing fast. And understanding these changes is the first step to protecting your future. Like this video if it helped you. Subscribe to Economic Veyogas for more global stories that actually matter. And tell me in the comments. Do you think the middle class can survive the next decade?